In an arena where speed, skill, and split-second decisions make the difference between fame and fortune or broken dreams, it's really no surprise that there are players out there who decide to push their limits beyond hard work and dedication to the game. Esports and prescription drug abuse go together like peanut butter and jelly, giving some players a hidden advantage over their competitors. Drugs like Adderall, Ritalin, or Vyvanse are being used to sharpen focus, enhance reaction time, and dominate the digital battlegrounds, but at what cost? Today, we're going to dive deep into the rise of performance-enhancing drugs being used in esports, why it's happening, how it's affecting the competitions, and what's being done to address this growing problem. Esports has absolutely surged in popularity over the past few decades, with every major gaming genre under the sun having its own professional esports league. This has made esports a multi-billion-dollar industry across the world. From the top-tier professional leagues in games like Call of Duty or League of Legends, all the way down to amateur tournaments being hosted in private Discord servers or on websites like Z-League, across the board, one of the problems that all of these leagues need to address is cheating. It's something that threatens the integrity of the tournaments, and it threatens the livelihood of some of these players who are sometimes competing for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in prize money.
$3 million richer, the biggest individual prize victory in competitive gaming history.
And now it's been a bit of an open secret among pro-level players that Adderall or other stimulating drugs like Ritalin or Vyvanse are being used and abused by players to give themselves a boost in their attention or their reaction time while they're playing in these tournaments.
I don't even care. We're all on Adderall. Like, I don't even give a
I would say Call of Duty almost notorious for the Adderall rumors. Previously seen issues of Adderall usage in Call of Duty, in Overwatch, in CSGO, in Gears of War, in Halo, and others.
I, at the time, was taking Adderall. Yeah, basically, it wasn't doing anything good for me. And I realized that night because I won that event with Adderall.
These stimulants are just a less powerful version of speed or meth. They are basically unlocking a dark corner of your brain so that you can lock in on another level. Now, these medications, they are not meth, okay? I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I know that there is a very clear difference between studied, safe prescription medications that are used to treat ADD and ADHD, as opposed to smoking the Walter White special and then punching holes in your wall because your dog told you to.
I'm an idiot. Why would I do that? Why would I just do that? Look at my wall now. Oh my God.
I'm not saying that these drugs are meth, they're just similar to meth. You see, people with ADD and ADHD, their brains don't produce enough dopamine, which is why they can have a lot of trouble with sitting still, focusing on tasks, because their brain is not getting the same reward that a regular person would be getting. So these medications do help people focus, sit still longer, control their impulses or urges, just stay on task in general. But if you have somebody who's already producing enough dopamine in their brain and they take one of these stimulating drugs, it can absolutely give them a heightened reaction to the side effects. This is why Adderall is sometimes called a study drug or a test-taking drug. It's because when you take it and you already have the normal amount of dopamine, you are able to hyper-focus on a specific task or thing that you're doing for a short period of time. And that's why over the past few years, esports has been really cracking down on the abuse of prescription drugs in gaming tournaments, because it is a perceived advantage over the natural or normal players who are not taking any sort of medication to unlock a Terminator switch in their brain.
You are terminated.
But this does raise a few questions, like how many players in esports are actually being prescribed ADD and ADHD medication? Are there players who are getting fake prescriptions so that they can legally be taking these drugs during competitions? Is there anything that can actually be done to reduce the risk of players cheating with these stimulants and to protect the health of these players who are taking these medications? And that's because over the past few years, there absolutely has been an increase in ADD and ADHD diagnosis. It's estimated that 1 in 9 children are diagnosed with ADHD, which is an insanely high percentage of children being diagnosed with that.
You get an ADHD diagnosis, and you get an ADHD diagnosis. Everybody gets an ADHD diagnosis.
Oprah might be handing out ADHD diagnoses, Diagnosopods. She might be telling a lot of people that they have ADHD, but what she should be doing is handing out stickers from my website, where I sell them. This website right here, everythingsucksupply.com, is where all of my stickers that I illustrate and design can be found, and if you enjoy any of them, you can pick them up, and it supports me and the channel directly. I got lots of fun designs, like this little pigeon dude that I just did, or the love butt design, or Daddy Death in his bathrobe. I just really enjoy making things, and if you like stickers as much as I do and you want to slap them on your car, on your fridge, on your water bottle, your laptop, your iPad, whatever it might be, then you can pick a few stickers up on my website, and don't forget to use the code Oprah for 10% off. I don't know, I fucking make a new code every time I record one of these, so Oprah for 10% off. Thank you for supporting me if you do by picking up a few stickers. Let's get back into the video. Now, most leagues have recruited the help of WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, and they are, as of January 1st, 2024, the worldwide gold standard for all sports. Anything that is sport related that wants anti-doping to be integrated goes through WADA. And WADA, as well as other anti-doping organizations, have been working with some esports leagues for a long time. The earliest I can find is 2016, where some of the leagues were actually implementing and enforcing anti-doping rules in their competitions. But even with regulations coming in as early as 2016, it's really hard to say if this has helped or not, if it's even made a difference in players using and abusing drugs. For example, the ESL, which is the Counter-Strike League, prohibits the use of Adderall unless you have a prescription. And based on the rising diagnosis numbers, that could be anywhere between 10 to 20% of your player base that has a prescription for this drug that's banned. But let's say you are a gamer who needs these medications to function normally. Well, you can get a therapeutic use exemption through WADA, which is going to let you take these drugs even while you're competing. You would need to prove that you'd have significant health concerns or conditions if you weren't taking these medications. You'd also have to prove that the substance does not enhance your performance, it just brings you to a normal level of health, and there also cannot be any alternative treatments available. WADA is allowed to investigate these prescriptions, they are allowed to offer these exemptions for players, but again, what is stopping players from getting fake prescriptions? What's stopping players from just getting the exemptions written down and continuing to abuse these drugs in tournaments? So you need to put a lot of faith in the players to properly disclose what drugs they're on, and you also need to put a lot of faith in WADA to uphold their end of the bargain, which historically they've been pretty shit at. Back in 2014, there was a Russian doping scandal where a state-sponsored doping program allowed for competitors to dope and continue to compete even after being exposed. There was also another case where the USADA, which is the American branch of WADA, was allowing players to dope and compete in exchange for them ratting out other players who were doping and trying to compete. It's kind of like the Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other, but everybody in the circle is doing drugs, and some of them are allowed and some of them aren't, but you don't know which one is which. So WADA is a bit of a mess. You kind of have to put a lot of faith in them to actually do their job, which sometimes they just decide not to.
What are you doing? WADA.
Not doing anything.
You also have the problem of how quick and efficient Adderall is at entering the human system. Adderall can start being effective within 30 minutes of taking the medication, and it's at its peak, it's at its most efficient use in your body 1 to 2 hours after taking the pill.
Okay, time for an eyes open nap.
And after that, it only takes about 2 to 3 days for it to completely leave and be untraceable in your system. So you could stay clean for a few days leading up to a tournament, and then when you get there, pop a pill, and 30 minutes later start fragging out and potentially win hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of dollars. And these guys aren't competing in North Korean nuclear research facilities. It's not like you have to shove Ritalin up your ass to get it past the security at these events. Maybe they've been searched, but it's still a pretty loose and relaxed security system. Or better yet, you're competing in your mom's basement where there is zero oversight, and a lot of the times you've got people who are cheating with software or programs, or they could be taking these medications and you would never know. By the time the competition is over, you could have already taken the medication, had all of its effects help you perform slightly better, and then just dip and be like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I've won, or I've ruined the competition, and now what? You have to redo the competition because somebody can prove that you were doping? So we have a cultural problem of people using using drugs to help themselves personally, to elevate their own personal abilities with drug abuse. That then bleeds into entry-level gamers who want to make it to the big leagues, trying or using these drugs because they've heard that other people have done it. And then you have the professional players who have been openly admitting for years that this is a known problem, that this is something that happens in the industry, and in some cases it's essentially expected of you to be doing this when you're competing.
Obviously, I think Adderall is an issue in esports. I think people say it and people
everyone
joke about
has
it.
dabbled, but I think it is very serious. I knew a bunch of people that would like take it come attorney time.
I at the time was taking Adderall. Yeah, basically it wasn't doing anything good for me. And I realized that night because I won that event with Adderall.
There is 100% players take Adderall. It's not just Overwatch League, right? I think Overwatch League is probably better on it than most other leagues, but Adderall is a massive issue that I think esports needs to tackle. Ark was quoted saying, if you are not taking Adderall, then you are putting yourself at an intentional disadvantage.
I don't even care. We're all on Adderall. Like, I don't even give a f.
And here's a clip from earlier this year where a Call of Duty pro is doing an interview just after winning a really important match. And while he's doing this interview, he's talking really fast. He's unable to focus. He's kind of like jumping all over the place, like he's hyped up on something.
Believed, you know, like I literally said, believe. Like I literally said, start playing tighter towards like, well, like it doesn't matter. But like, yeah, we got the piece P4, we got the castle row. And we just believed, and then we ended up breaking P1. Yeah, you know how it went.
Comparing this to some of his older interviews where he is more calm, collected, and cool after a big win, a lot of people speculated that it's because he was on some sort of drug after the match.
See, I put all of yesterday on me, so now I'm gonna turn up for the rest of the tournament, and we're gonna take what's ours. Hey! Oh yeah, I know we'll get it done. Appreciate all you guys for showing us love. You already know. All right. Appreciate every single one of you guys. You guys have been insane since, honestly, like this team has formed. The amount of support you guys have shown, I've honestly never seen anything like it, and I'm grateful for every single one of you guys. And you already know, man, we're working our hardest every single day, trying to bring home championships for you guys, and we're going to keep continuing to do so, and we appreciate your support.
He came out and claimed that it was caffeine and nerves because of the crowd that was in front of him. I'm not here to say 100% one way or the other. I am going to say that his body language is very different from any of the previous interviews that you can watch him in. And just a little personal anecdote here, I drink a lot of coffee. I constantly have an insane amount of caffeine in my bloodstream, and I've never had jitters or the shakes or talked like this guy talks. In my personal opinion, this guy was doing speed.
Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
I'm not a doctor, so what I'm about to say should be taken with a grain of salt. Something I've heard for a very long time is that people with ADD or ADHD are easily addicted to video games, or at the very least, they are easily able to play video games for a long period of time. And I think the reason for this is pretty obvious. Video games have lots of visual stimulation. They're very colorful and they've got quick movement, and then you also have constant and frequent rewards with getting 100 points for a kill or being able to upgrade some sort of weapon or whatever it might be. There's a lot of small things that are happening in video games that are giving you constant dopamine hits. And that's why people with ADD or ADHD can typically sit down and play video games for the same amount of time as a healthy, normal person whose brain is producing enough dopamine on a regular basis. You have somebody who typically can't focus or work on something for a long period of time who can now focus and work on something for a long period of time just because of the nature of the video game giving that feedback that this person is typically lacking. I don't see a world where you couldn't have boosted effects for either player. That might have sounded like a bit of a schizophrenic ramble, but it makes sense to me. Let me know if it makes sense to you. What I'm basically saying is if you have one person with healthy brain chemistry here and another person with not so healthy brain chemistry, but both of those people can sit down and play a game for extended periods of time at a high level, wouldn't it then also make sense that both of these people would benefit from taking these stimulating drugs? And it's not like Adderall is the same as steroids or meth, where if you are abusing these drugs for a long enough period of time or very frequently, then there are some very clear and obvious physical signs of people abusing those drugs. Adderall or other stimulants essentially give you the superpower of locking in for a short period of time and returning back to your normal self after a few hours. I'm not saying try it. Please do not take any drugs that you're not supposed to have.
Don't do drugs. likes kids.
He was thinking about developing a drug addiction, but that would be stupid.
Here's a short list of some of the side effects that could take place if you're abusing Adderall. You could have high blood pressure and heart disease. You could develop anxiety and depression. You could fall into stimulant-induced psychosis, which manifests as hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia. You can become addicted to Adderall. Long-term use can have an impact on cognitive functions and even your behavior. That could lead to difficulty with your memory or impulse control. You could develop seizures or an irregular heartbeat. In children or people who are still in the process of growing, there's actually been a link to these people being shorter, and even though that side effect can sometimes revert itself, you'll be a short king while you're taking Adderall. You can also develop gastrointestinal problems, which means your farts may be able to clear out arenas, which might be a good way to cheat and win in tournaments, but probably not good for any other situation. So the long-term side effects of these medications can be pretty substantial. These can be issues that end up following you for a very long time and causing really debilitating long-term side effects. And this is all because you didn't want to spend a little extra time literally getting good. That, to me, is a pretty shitty trade-off when you could potentially have some extra money in the bank account, but you have a heartbeat that is the equivalent of a blind schizophrenic monkey banging on the drums. These drugs, they have historically been a problem for esports and the leagues, and you do have these anti-doping organizations trying to come up with solutions and rules and exemptions. Some of these leagues do testing immediately after every match. Some of these leagues do random testing during competitions, but there's really no standardized way of testing for these drugs. There's no standardized way of knowing who should or shouldn't be taking these drugs, and there's enough of a perception, regardless of the science behind it, that these drugs are giving players an advantage over the competition who's not taking them. I'm honestly wondering if esports is going to move in the direction of professional bodybuilding, where you essentially need to be taking these drugs to perform at the highest level. Taking these drugs has been normalized to such an absurd degree for such a long period of time. I'm wondering if it's too little too late to get the anti-doping organizations involved, and the fact that it's not even standardized across all of the esports. There's just certain leagues that are taking bits and pieces of these anti-doping regulations. I'm wondering if it's just easier to say, fuck it, everybody gets drugs, you can all have drugs, who cares what drugs you're on? Regardless, this is a problem that is deeply ingrained in the culture of competitive gaming, and even if the leagues are able to figure it out or people decide to stop taking stimulants, there will still be the problem of people who suck and want to cheat because they can't be better, because people suck and they're losers and there's cheaters, and it doesn't matter what rules you have in place, you're still gonna have loser cheaters cheating. Hope you learned something in this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.